On May 3, 1973, a man landed in Abu Dhabi with $8 in his pocket. 46 years later, he was worth $4.2 billion. 90 days after that, all of it was gone, not lost, not spent. It had never fully existed. This is the story of NMC Health, the hospital empire that fooled the London Stock Exchange. $6.6 billion of debt, hidden from auditors, regulators, and shareholders for years. By the end of this file, you will see the exact moment the lie collapsed, and you will face one question the courts are still fighting over. Did the founder build the fraud, or did the fraud swallow the founder? Keep that question in your head. The answer is not what you expect. 1973, Bavagathu Raghuram Shetty steps off a plane from India. He is 30 years old, a trained pharmacist and deep in debt. Back home, he borrowed money for his sister's wedding and could not pay it back. The bank was closing in, so he left with $8 and one shirt. His luggage was lost the day he arrived. He owned nothing but the clothes he wore. He spoke no Arabic. The government job he hoped for was impossible. So he walked the streets of Abu Dhabi selling medicine door to door. He became the first medical sales representative in the country, and he noticed something. The Emirates had oil money, but almost no hospitals. In 1975, he opened a small clinic. He called it New Medical Center. In its first year, the clinic treated 3 patients. 3, most men would have quit. Shetty doubled down. His wife, a doctor, saw the patients. He ran everything else. The oil boom arrived. Workers poured into the Emirates by the hundreds of thousands. Every worker needed a doctor. Shetty was ready. By 1981, the clinic was a full hospital. Then he saw a second gap. Those same workers needed to send money home. He founded UAE Exchange. It became one of the largest remittance companies on earth. Hospitals, pharmacies, money transfer, a pharmaceutical factory in the desert. People laughed at that factory. Nobody laughed for long. The rulers of Abu Dhabi pinned their highest civilian honor on his chest. India awarded him the Padma Shri. He wore his medals everywhere. The debt-ridden pharmacist was now healthcare royalty, and in 2012 he reached for the crown. London, NMC Health listed on the London Stock Exchange, the first company from the Emirates ever to do it. The float valued NMC at $665 million. Respectable. But Shetty had never settled for respectable. What happened next made the city of London fall in love. Revenue nearly doubled, then doubled again. Hospitals multiplied across 17 countries. 8.5 million patients a year, 2,000 doctors. Analysts could not buy in fast enough. In 2017, NMC entered the FTSE 100, the elite index of British business. A migrant who once sold pills from a suitcase now stood among giants. At its peak, NMC was worth $11 billion. Forbes put Shetty's personal fortune at $4.2 billion. He signed the Giving Pledge, promising half his wealth to charity. He bought 2 entire floors of the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the world. This was the story everyone wanted to believe, $8 to $11 billion. It was a perfect story, and parts of it were true. But underneath the marble floors, something else was growing. Debt, quiet, hidden, and multiplying in the dark. Here's how empires like this actually feed themselves. NMC grew by buying hospital chains, clinics, fertility centers. Acquisition after acquisition, every purchase needed money, and the money came from loans. Remember the name Bank of Baroda? An old friend of Shetty's worked there. Decades earlier, that friendship unlocked his first big loan in 2 weeks flat. Friendships like that would matter later. File it away. On paper, NMC's debt looked manageable. Around $2 billion, healthy revenue, healthy margins, a rising share price. The picture was beautiful. The picture was also a painting, because the real debt was not $2 billion. The real number would not surface for years. When it did, it ended everything. December 17, 2019, a Tuesday. A short-selling firm called Muddy Waters publishes a report on NMC Health. Muddy Waters bets against companies. They make money when share prices fall. Their founder, Carson Block, had a reputation. When he wrote, "Companies bled," the report asked simple questions. Why were NMC's profits so much higher than every competitor? Why did a company this profitable keep borrowing so much money? And who actually controlled the founder's shares? The market read the report at 8 in the morning. By lunch, NMC had lost 1/3 of its value. $3 billion of value gone before the coffee went cold. NMC called the report baseless. The board promised an independent review. Investors wanted to believe. The stock steadied. It even climbed a little. Then the board hired investigators to check the books, just to be safe. What those investigators found was worse than anything Muddy Waters had claimed. The company was not hiding a problem. The company was hiding a parallel universe. Inside NMC, there were 2 sets of books. One set was for the auditors, the board, and the public. The other set recorded loans that officially did not exist. Billions borrowed through side agreements the board had never approved. Money flowed through supply chain financing. a quiet corner of banking most people never see. A firm called Greensill packaged NMC paper and sold it to investors through Credit Suisse funds. $274 million of it, pension money, ordinary savings. Where did the borrowed billions actually go? Investigators followed the wires. Hundreds of millions had moved to companies owned by NMC's own largest shareholders. The company borrowed in its own name. The money served other masters. By February 2020, the London Stock Exchange froze NMC shares, trading suspended. $11 billion of market value locked in ice. Shetty resigned from the board of the company he had built for 45 years. His 75th birthday plans had included celebrations. Instead, lawyers, but even now many believed NMC could survive. The hospitals were real. Patients filled the wards, real doctors, real surgeries, real revenue. Surely the core business could be saved. Banks discussed restructuring. Advisors drew up rescue plans. The word was stabilization. For a few weeks in early 2020, it looked contained. The known hidden debt stood at around $5 billion, terrible but perhaps survivable. Then the investigators finished counting. The true debt was $6.6 billion, more than triple what the world had been told. $6.6 billion, enough to build 30 new hospitals, gone into the dark. In April 2020, NMC Health entered administration. The empire was over, delisted from London, erased from the FTSE. The first Emirati champion, now a cautionary tale. Shareholders lost essentially everything. Pension funds, index funds, ordinary people. The collapse detonated outward, far beyond one company. Shetty's other empire, the money transfer giant Finabler, collapsed within weeks. Travelex, the currency chain he had bought, was sold off in pieces. The Greensill funds froze. A year later, Greensill itself collapsed, shaking Credit Suisse. One hidden ledger in Abu Dhabi had helped crack institutions across 3 continents, so the question became unavoidable. Who did this? Shetty said he was the victim, not the architect. He claimed his signatures were forged. Bank accounts opened in his name without his knowledge. Loans he never saw, guarantees he never gave. A conspiracy built around his own legend. He pointed at his own executives, the men who ran the numbers while he cut ribbons. Chief among them, his former chief executive, Prasanth Manghat. Investigators saw it differently. The self-made legend was on the paperwork. Personal guarantees worth hundreds of millions carried his name. In October 2025, a Dubai court ordered him to pay $46 million to an Indian bank. The judge called his testimony false and inconsistent. And remember Bank of Baroda, the friendly bank from the beginning of the story. Courts have now ordered it to open its files on suspicious NMC transactions. The bank that funded the dream is now a defendant in the autopsy. In March 2026, the main event began. A $5.4 billion fraud trial. Shetty, Manghat, Bank of Baroda, all named, all denying everything. The trial is happening right now as you watch this. So return to the question from the beginning. Option 1. Shetty built the fraud. The $8 story was the perfect camouflage. Who audits a living legend? Who questions a man with medals from 2 governments? Option 2. The empire outgrew the emperor and the men in the engine room robbed it blind. A 75-year-old founder kept smiling for cameras while others signed in his name. The court will pick one, but here is the uncomfortable truth. Both versions require the same ingredient, belief. Everyone wanted the $8 story to be true. The banks believed, so they lent without looking. The auditors believed, so they signed. Their $4 billion lawsuit is still burning through the courts. The index funds believed, so millions of people owned NMC without ever knowing its name. And the regulators believed because the FTSE 100 is supposed to mean something. Fraud does not defeat systems, it borrows their credibility. NMC's hospitals, by the way, survived. Under new owners, doctors still heal patients every day. The business was always real. That is what made the lie so effective. Shetty, past 80 now, lives in India, fighting judgments, giving interviews, still insisting. From $8 to $4 billion to defendant. The full circle took 50 years. One detail remains unexplained. Investigators traced most of the money. Most, hundreds of millions, simply vanished from the record. No trial has accounted for them yet, so you decide, architect or figurehead, say your verdict in the comments. The court has not ruled. You can. And that auditor who signed NMC's accounts for 6 years. Their next scandal is the subject of the next file.